Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jesse Laval, and today we're going to talk about the Canon M50 that I've been using and my new EOS RP. I've been using exclusively the Canon M50 for the last year, and the only type of cameras that I've ever used, I started with a T6, which was a DSLR that used an APS-C sensor, and then I ended up, very briefly using that camera, and then I switched over to this Canon M50 that is also an APS-C sensor camera. So that's the only type of camera that I've ever had exposure to. Luckily, I saw that the EOS RP on Amazon was going for $1,000, and that included this adapter that allowed you to use EF glass. So I ended up getting my first full-frame sensor. Now, for those of you that don't know the difference, it's basically just the physical size of the sensor on the inside. And if you take a look, this is the full-frame sensor, and those are the differences between sensor sizes on these cameras, and it's a pretty big difference. Now, I've been thinking about getting a full-frame sensor camera for a while, just because I'm always hearing about how much better it is in low light, and what does that mean, and how much better is it going to be, because they are like crazy expensive. This one was $9.99 with the adapter. No native RF lenses came with it at all, so I don't even have a native lens with it. I literally just use my EF glass with it right now. But the biggest thing that I've noticed so far is the ability to push my ISO just like so much higher without noise introducing itself into the picture so far. Like with my Canon M50, after using it for a year, I kind of settled into the thought process of once I'm going over 800 ISO, my pictures really aren't going to even be usable anymore. I mean, you can noise reduce it, but at that point you're losing the whole point of having a nice camera and getting that really crisp, nice texture in there that you might want. So basically I came to the consensus that using my M50, again the APS-C sensor, I couldn't go above ISO 800, where I've only used this for a few days now, but I've been able to get stuff off at like ISO 8000 or even higher than that. And I'm, when there's a little bit of noise still being introduced, it's not a lot, and the picture's still completely usable. I mean, not only that, also I'm able to see that it's just taking in more light at the same apertures as this APS-C sensor is. So not only am I getting a more well-exposed picture right off the bat, but I'm also able to recover the shadows better, just push that ISO so much higher that it's a huge, massive difference in where I'm able to shoot and what I'm able to get away with as far as a photographer and get usable pictures. So that's my initial thoughts using just a full frame from APS-C sensors. Just that high ISO usability is the big difference that I'm noticing. Here you can see that there's obviously a much larger grip on the EOS RP than there is the M50. This one has more of what feels like the older DSLR grips. It's longer and you have a better grip on it. The M50, I ended up having like a small rig cage that extended my grip out. And I mean, that works great too. There's still advantages to this system over the EOS RP. I mean, the EOS RP is still just like the most entry-level basic version of a full-frame camera that you're gonna get. It's only $1,000, which is like crazy cheap. Every other one I've looked at, even being DSLRs or mirrorlesses, you're looking at $2 grand, $3 grand, $4 grand, $5 grand for those bodies. This is probably the most bare-bones full-frame camera you're ever gonna get. It doesn't shoot that fast. Like my M50 shoots at 10 frames per second. This shoots at 4, I believe it is. It's 5 if you're not using servo mode, and 4 if you are using servo mode. And you're probably going to be using servo mode if you want to have fast shooting anyways. If I'm going to go out for wildlife and I want to use like my 100 to 400 EF glass, I'm probably going to use my M50 still, because this is going to shoot faster. It's going to shoot at 10 frames per second versus the 4 that my RP is going to pull off. But not only that, the other big difference that I've noticed when using my new full frame system in comparison to my old APS-C sensor is the focal length is a huge difference, which is really cool. I wasn't really a huge fan of my 50mm using my APS-C sensor, but now that I've thrown it onto the full frame sensor, seeing it at the actual 50 millimeters, it's much wider than I imagined it was going to be, a bigger difference than I thought, and I can really kind of use it inside now, and that's nice. It's better for portraiture, for me anyway. I guess I prefer that wider angle. But going back to if I'm shooting with wildlife, that APS-C sensor, or that 1.6 crop factor that it's going to apply to the glass, so my 400 millimeter lens is actually going to allow me to see somewhere around like 640 millimeters, whereas on my EOS RP system, I'm still only seeing that physical 400 millimeter range. That going to 640 is a pretty big deal. I went out and I went to Mercer County Park and I was shooting with my EOS RP with my 400 millimeter glass, and I really was missing that extra 240 mil. I mean, I could definitely notice the difference in my range and was missing using my M50. And one thing I do want to talk about a little bit is the adapter. There's two different kinds that you can get. There's one that's just a normal adapter. It just allows you to put EF glass onto your EOS R systems. But one of the cool things about the new EOS R systems and their RF glass is that they have this new little control ring that they've added, and the new RF glass has it built in, but if you're using the adapter and using EF glass, there's two different adapters. One has the control ring and one doesn't have the control ring. The one that doesn't have the control ring is currently selling for $100, where the one with the control ring is selling for $200. But it really adds a cool piece of user functionality that I think is really worth getting, even though $100 is kind of steep for it. But what you can do is you can set this to basically anything you want, and it can control any aspect of you want. What I've done is I've set it to control my ISO. I've got two dials on the RP, so I've got the aperture dial, I've got the shutter speed dial, and then adding the ISO onto this control ring on the back of my glass allows me to never even have to touch my menu when I'm trying to adjust all three aspects of the exposure triangle. I can literally look through my electronic viewfinder, I see the exposure in real time. On top of that, I can control all three aspects of it right from my hands, which is just like awesome. So I do really think it's worth getting that adapter that does give you that control ring if you plan to use most EF glass, which I'm guessing if you're getting the lower end full frame camera, that's probably what most people are going to do with it. If I had to go by what I know within a few days of just using this full frame, I'd say there is definitely a huge difference between using APS-C and full frame. I definitely, like I said, I think the money is going to that high ISO performance. I haven't used it very much, and I know that this is one of the lower end performing full frame cameras that are out there right now. I know this sensor isn't known for having the best dynamic range, but even that being said, I still see a massive difference in the dynamic range that I've been used to using a Canon M50, or obviously even the T6 from before that. I didn't think I was going to be able to shoot at ISO 8000 and get a clean image. I never, Hey guys, thanks for watching. If this helped you, please go down below, subscribe, click the bell, and I'll see you guys next time.